Hello, my name is Victor. This video covers lessons 3 and 4 of the Master Key System. I have included a link in the description that you can use to download it for free if you're interested in reading it. Part 3 tells why the necessary action and interaction of the conscious and subconscious minds requires two corresponding systems of nerves. It explains how the connection is made between these two systems of nerves. It explains and tells of a central point in the body for the distribution of energy. How this energy is distributed. How the distribution of this energy gives the individual pleasant sensations. How the interruption of this distribution brings discord, inharmony and lack and limitation of every kind. It tells of an arch enemy which must be destroyed, and tells how to destroy it. It tells what determines the experiences in life with which we are to meet, and why these experiences are under our own control. One enthusiastic reader says of this part, "This document in my opinion is the greatest single document beneficial to mankind ever written in the history of the world. It is the first time that I have come into a true understanding of the silent powers that dominate and determine one's success." Introduction. You have found that the individual may act on the universal, and that the result of this action and interaction is cause and effect. Thought, therefore, is the cause, and the experiences with which you meet in life are the effect. Eliminate, therefore, any possible tendency to complain of conditions as they have been, or as they are, because it rests with you to change them and make them what you would like them to be. Direct your efforts to a realization of the mental resources, always at your command, from which all real and lasting power comes. Persist in this practice till you come to a realization of the fact that there can be no failure in the accomplishment of any proper object in life if you but understand your power and persist in your object, because the mind forces are ever ready to lend themselves to a purposeful will in the effort to crystallize thought and desire into actions, events and conditions. Whereas in the beginning each function of life and each action is the result of conscious thought, the habitual actions become automatic and the thought that controls them passes into the realm of the subconscious, yet it is just as intelligent as before. It is necessary that it become automatic or subconscious in order that the self-conscious mind may attend to other things. The new actions will, however, in their turn, become habitual, then automatic, then subconscious in order that the mind again may be freed from this detail and advance to still other activities. When you realize this, you will have found a source of power which will enable you to cope with any situation in life which may develop. Part 3. The necessary interaction of the conscious and subconscious mind requires a similar interaction between the corresponding systems of nerves. Judge Troward indicates the very beautiful method in which this interaction is effected. He says, "The cerebrospinal system is the organ of the conscious mind, and the sympathetic is the organ of the subconscious. The cerebrospinal is the channel through which we receive conscious perception from the physical senses, and exercise control over the movements of the body. This system of nerves has its center in the brain. The sympathetic system has its center in a ganglionic mass at the back of the stomach known as the solar plexus, and is the channel of that mental action which unconsciously supports the vital functions of the body. The connection between the two systems is made by the vagus nerve, which passes out of the cerebral region as a portion of the voluntary system to the thorax, sending out branches to the heart and lungs, and finally passing through the diaphragm it loses its outer coating and becomes identified with the nerves of the sympathetic system, so forming a connecting link between the two and making man physically a single entity. We have seen that every thought is received by the brain, which is the organ of the conscious. It is here subjected to our power of reasoning. When the objective mind has been satisfied that the thought is true, it is sent to the solar plexus, or the brain of the subjective mind, to be made into our flesh, to be brought into the world as a reality. It is then no longer susceptible to any argument whatever. The subconscious mind cannot argue, it only acts. It accepts the conclusions of the objective mind as final. The solar plexus has been likened to the sun of the body, because it is a central point of distribution for the energy which the body is constantly generating. This energy is very real energy, and this sun is a very real sun, and the energy is being distributed by very real nerves to all parts of the body, and is thrown off in an atmosphere which envelops the body. If this radiation is sufficiently strong, the person is called magnetic. He is said to be filled with personal magnetism. Such a person may wield an immense power for good. His presence alone will often bring comfort to the troubled minds with which he comes in contact. When the solar plexus is in active operation and is radiating life, energy and vitality to every part of the body, and to everyone whom he meets, the sensations are pleasant, the body is filled with health, and all with whom he comes in contact experience a pleasant sensation. If there is any interruption of this radiation, the sensations are unpleasant, the flow of life and energy to some part of the body is stopped, and this is the cause of every ill to the human race, physical, mental or environmental. Physical, because the sun of the body is no longer generating sufficient energy to vitalize some part of the body. Mental, because the conscious mind is dependent upon the subconscious mind for the vitality necessary to support its thought. And environmental, because the connection between the subconscious mind and the universal mind is being interrupted. The solar plexus is the point at which the part meets with the whole, where the finite becomes infinite, where the uncreate becomes create, the universal becomes individualized, the invisible becomes visible. It is the point at which life appears, and there is no limit to the amount of life an individual may generate from this solar center. This center of energy is omnipotent because it is the point of contact with all life and all intelligence. It can therefore accomplish whatever it is directed to accomplish, and herein lies the power of the conscious mind. The subconscious can and will carry out such plans and ideas as may be suggested to it by the conscious mind. Conscious thought, then, is master of this sun center from which the life and energy of the entire body flows, and the quality of the thought which we entertain determines the quality of the thought which this sun will radiate, and the character of the thought which our conscious mind entertains will determine the character of the thought which this sun will radiate, and the nature of the thought which our conscious mind entertains will determine the nature of thought which this sun will radiate, and consequently will determine the nature of the experience which will result. It is evident, therefore, that all we have to do is let our light shine. The more energy we can radiate, the more rapidly shall we be enabled to transmute undesirable conditions into sources of pleasure and profit. The important question, then, is how to let this light shine, how to generate this energy. Non-resistant thought expands the solar plexus, resistant thought contracts it. Pleasant thought expands it, unpleasant thought contracts it. Thoughts of courage, power, confidence and hope all produce a corresponding state, but the one arch-enemy of the solar plexus which must be absolutely destroyed before there is any possibility of letting any light shine is fear. This enemy must be completely destroyed, he must be eliminated, he must be expelled forever, he is the cloud which hides the sun, which causes a perpetual gloom. It is this personal devil which makes men fear the past, the present and the future, fear themselves, their friends and their enemies, fear everything and everybody. When fear is effectually and completely destroyed, your light will shine, the clouds will disperse and you will have found the source of power, energy and life. When you find that you are really one with the infinite power, and when you can consciously realize this power by a practical demonstration of your ability to overcome any adverse condition by the power of your thought, you will have nothing to fear, fear will have been destroyed and you will have come into possession of your birthright. It is our attitude of mind towards life which determines the experiences with which we are to meet. If we expect nothing we shall have nothing, if we demand much we shall receive the greater portion. The world is harsh only as we fail to assert ourselves. The criticism of the world is bitter only to those who cannot compel room for their ideas. It is fear of this criticism that causes many ideas to fail to see the light of day. But the man who knows that he has a solar plexus will not fear criticism or anything else, he will be too busy radiating courage, confidence, and power, he will anticipate success by his mental attitude, he will pound barriers to pieces and leap over the chasm of doubt and hesitation which fear places in his path. A knowledge of our ability to consciously radiate health, strength and harmony will bring us into a realization that there is nothing to fear because we are in touch with infinite strength. This knowledge can be gained only by making a practical application of this information. We learn by doing. Through practice the athlete becomes powerful. As the following statement is of considerable importance, I will put it in several ways, so that you cannot fail to get the full significance of it. If you are religiously inclined, I would say, you can let your light shine. If your mind has a bias towards physical science, I would say you can wake the solar plexus, or, if you prefer the strictly scientific interpretation, I will say that you can impress your subconscious mind. I have already told you what the result of this impression will be. It is the method in which you are now interested. You have already learned that the subconscious is intelligent and that it is creative, and responsive to the will of the conscious mind. What, then, is the most natural way of making the desired impression? Mentally concentrate on the object of your desire. When you are concentrating you are impressing the subconscious. This is not the only way, but it is a simple and effective way, and the most direct way, and consequently the way in which the best results are secured. It is the method which is producing such extraordinary results that many think that miracles are being accomplished. It is the method by which every great inventor, every great financier, every great statesman has been enabled to convert the subtle and invisible force of desire, faith and confidence into actual, tangible, concrete facts in the objective world. The subconscious mind is a part of the universal mind. The universal is the creative principle of the universe, a part must be the same in kind and quality as the whole. This means that this creative power is absolutely unlimited, it is not bound by precedent of any kind, and consequently has no prior existing pattern by which to apply its constructive principle. We have found that the subconscious mind is responsive to our conscious will, which means that the unlimited creative power of the universal mind is within the control of the conscious mind of the individual. When making a practical application of this principle, in accordance with the exercises given in subsequent parts, it is well to remember that it is not necessary to outline the method by which the subconscious will produce the results you desire. The finite cannot inform the infinite. You are simply to say what you desire, not how you are to obtain it. You are the channel by which the undifferentiated is being differentiated, and this differentiation is being accomplished by appropriation. It only requires recognition to set causes in motion which will bring about results in accordance with your desire, and this is accomplished because the universal can act only through the individual, and the individual can act only through the universal. They are one. For your next exercise, I will ask you to go one step further. I want you to not only be perfectly still, and inhibit all thought as far as possible, but relax, let go, let the muscles take their normal condition. This will remove all pressure from the nerves and eliminate that tension which so frequently produces physical exhaustion. Physical relaxation is a voluntary exercise of the will, and the exercise will be found to be of great value, as it enables the blood to circulate freely to and from the brain and body. Tension leads to mental unrest and abnormal mental activity of the mind. It produces worry, care, fear and anxiety. Relaxation is therefore an absolute necessity in order to allow the mental faculties to exercise the greatest freedom. Make this exercise as thorough and complete as possible. Mentally determine that you will relax every muscle and nerve, until you feel quiet and restful and at peace with yourself and the world. The solar plexus will then be ready to function, and you will be surprised at the result. We judge of a man's wisdom by his hope, knowing that the perception of the inexhaustibleness of nature is an immortal youth. Emerson. Part 3. What system of nerves is the organ of the conscious mind? The cerebrospinal. What system of nerves is the organ of the subconscious mind? The sympathetic. What is the central point of distribution for the energy which the body is constantly generating? The solar plexus. How may this distribution be interrupted? By resistant, critical, discordant thoughts, but especially by fear. What is the result of such interruption? Every ill with which the human race is afflicted. How may this energy be controlled and directed? By conscious thought. How may fear be completely eliminated? By an understanding and recognition of the true source of all power. What determines the experiences with which we meet in life? Our predominant mental attitude. How may we awake the solar plexus? Mentally concentrate upon the condition which we desire to see manifested in our lives. What is the creative principle of the universe? The universal mind. Mind in itself is believed to be a subtle form of static energy, from which arises the activities called thought, which is the dynamic phase of mind. Mind is static energy, thought is dynamic energy, the two phases of the same thing. Walker. Part 4. This part tells what it is which controls that which you call yourself. You are not your body, the body is simply the physical instrument which the ego uses to carry out its purpose. You are not your mind, this is simply another instrument which the ego uses to think, reason and plan. When you say I go, you tell the body where to go. When you say I think, you tell the mind what to think. When you come into a realization of the true nature of the I, you will enjoy a sense of power which nothing else can give, because you will come to know what you are, who you are, what you want, and how to get it. Introduction. This part will show you why what you think, or do, or feel, is an indication of what you are. Thought is energy, and energy is power, and it is because all the religions, sciences and philosophies with which the world has heretofore been familiar have been based upon the manifestation of this energy instead of the energy itself, that the world has been limited to effects, while causes have been ignored or misunderstood. For this reason we have God and the devil in religion, positive and negative in science, and good and bad in philosophy. The master key reverses the process, it is interested only in cause, and the letters received from readers tell a marvelous story. They indicate conclusively that adepts are finding the cause whereby they may secure for themselves health, harmony, abundance, and whatever else may be necessary for their welfare and happiness. Life is expressive, and it is our business to express ourselves harmoniously and constructively. Sorrow, misery, unhappiness, disease and poverty are not necessities, and we are constantly eliminating them. But this process of eliminating consists in rising above and beyond limitation of any kind. He who has strengthened and purified his thought need not concern himself about microbes, and he who has come into an understanding of the law of abundance will go at once to the source of supply. It is thus that fate, fortune and destiny will be controlled as readily as a captain controls his ship, or an engineer his train. Part 4. The I of you is not the physical body, that is simply an instrument which the I uses to carry out its purposes. The I cannot be the mind, for the mind is simply another instrument which the I uses with which to think, reason, and plan. The I must be something which controls and directs both the body and the mind, something which determines what they shall do and how they shall act. When you come into a realization of the true nature of this I, you will enjoy a sense of power which you have never before known. Your personality is made up of countless individual characteristics, peculiarities, habits and traits of character. These are the result of your former method of thinking, but they have nothing to do with the real I. When you say I think, the I tells the mind what it shall think. When you say I go, the I tells the physical body where it shall go. The real nature of this I is spiritual, and is the source of the real power which comes to men and women when they come into a realization of their true nature. The greatest and most marvelous power which this I has been given is the power to think, but few people know how to think constructively, or correctly, consequently they achieve only indifferent results. Most people allow their thoughts to dwell on selfish purposes, the inevitable result of an infantile mind. When a mind becomes mature, it understands that the germ of defeat is in every selfish thought. The trained mind knows that every transaction must benefit every person who is in any way connected with the transaction, and any attempt to profit by the weakness, ignorance or necessity of another will inevitably operate to his disadvantage. This is because the individual is a part of the universal. A part cannot antagonize any other part, but, on the contrary, the welfare of each part depends upon a recognition of the interests of the whole. Those who recognize this principle have a great advantage in the affairs of life. They do not wear themselves out. They can eliminate vagrant thoughts with facility. They can readily concentrate to the highest possible degree on any subject. They do not waste time or money upon objects which can be of no possible benefit to them. If you cannot do these things, it is because you have thus far not made the necessary effort. Now is the time to make the effort. The result will be exactly in proportion to the effort expended. One of the strongest affirmations which you can use for the purpose of strengthening the will and realizing your power to accomplish is, I can be what I will to be. Every time you repeat it, realize who and what this I is. Try to come into a thorough understanding of the true nature of the I. If you do, you will become invincible. That is, provided that your objects and purposes are constructive and are therefore in harmony with the creative principle of the universe. If you make use of this affirmation, use it continuously, night and morning, and as often during the day as you think of it, and continue to do so until it becomes a part of you. Form the habit. Unless you do this, you had better not start at all, because modern psychology tells us that when we start something and do not complete it, or make a resolution and do not keep it, we are forming the habit of failure, absolute, ignominious failure. If you do not intend to do a thing, do not start. If you do start, see it through even if the heavens fall. If you make up your mind to do something, do it. Let nothing, no one interfere. The I in you has determined. The thing is settled. The die is cast. There is no longer any argument. If you carry out this idea, beginning with small things which you know you can control and gradually increase the effort, but never under any circumstances allowing your I to be overruled, you will find that you can eventually control yourself, and many men and women have found to their sorrow that it is easier to control a kingdom than to control themselves. But when you have learned to control yourself, you will have found the world within which controls the world without. You will have become irresistible. Men and things will respond to your every wish without any apparent effort on your part. This is not so strange or impossible as it may appear when you remember that the world within is controlled by the I, and that this I is a part or one with the infinite I, which is the universal energy or spirit, usually called God. This is not a mere statement or theory made for the purpose of confirming or establishing an idea, but it is a fact which has been accepted by the best religious thought as well as the best scientific thought. Herbert Spencer says, amid all the mysteries by which we are surrounded, nothing is more certain than that we are ever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. Lyman Abbott, in an address delivered before the alumni of Bangor Theological Seminary, said, "We are coming to think of God as dwelling in man rather than as operating on men from without." Science goes a little way in its search and stops. Science finds the ever-present eternal energy, but religion finds the power behind this energy and locates it within man. But this is by no means a new discovery. The Bible says exactly the same thing, and the language is just as plain and convincing. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the living God? Here, then, is the secret of the wonderful creative power of the world within. Here is the secret of power, of mastery. To overcome does not mean to go without things. Self-denial is not success. We cannot give unless we get. We cannot be helpful unless we are strong. The infinite is not a bankrupt, and we who are the representatives of infinite power should not be bankrupts either. And if we wish to be of service to others, we must have power and more power, but to get it we must give it, we must be of service. The more we give the more we shall get, we must become a channel whereby the universal can express activity. The universal is constantly seeking to express itself, to be of service, and it seeks the channel whereby it can find the greatest activity, where it can do the most good, where it can be of greatest service to mankind. The universal cannot express through you as long as you are busy with your plans, your own purposes, quiet the senses, seek inspiration, focus the mental activity on the within, dwell in the consciousness of your unity with omnipotence. Still water runs deep, contemplate the multitudinous opportunities to which you have spiritual access by the omnipresence of power. Visualize the events, circumstances and conditions which these spiritual connections may assist in manifesting. Realize the fact that the essence and soul of all things is spiritual and that the spiritual is the real, because it is the life of all there is. When the spirit is gone, the life is gone, it is dead, it has ceased to exist. These mental activities pertain to the world within, to the world of cause, and conditions and circumstances which result are the effect. It is thus that you become a creator. This is important work, and the higher, loftier, grander and more noble ideals which you can conceive, the more important the work will become. Overwork or overplay or over bodily activity of any kind produces conditions of mental apathy and stagnation which makes it impossible to do the more important work which results in a realization of conscious power. We should, therefore, seek the silence frequently. Power comes through repose, it is in the silence that we can be still, and when we are still we can think, and thought is the secret of all attainment. Thought is a mode of motion and is carried by the law of vibration the same as light or electricity. It is given vitality by the emotions through the law of love, it takes form and expression by the law of growth, it is a product of the spiritual eye, hence its divine, spiritual, and creative nature. From this it is evident that in order to express power, abundance or any other constructive purpose, the emotions must be called upon to give feeling to the thought so that it will take form. How may this purpose be accomplished? This is the vital point, how may we develop the faith, the courage, the feeling, which will result in accomplishment? The reply is, by exercise. Mental strength is secured in exactly the same way that physical strength is secured, by exercise. We think something, perhaps with difficulty the first time, we think the same thing again, and it becomes easier this time, we think it again and again, it then becomes a mental habit. We continue to think the same thing, finally it becomes automatic, we can no longer help thinking this thing, we are now positive of what we think, there is no longer any doubt about it. We are sure, we know. In part 3 I asked you to relax, to let go physically. Now I'm going to ask you to let go mentally. If you practice the previous exercise 15 or 20 minutes a day in accordance with the instructions, you can no doubt relax physically, and anyone who cannot consciously do this quickly and completely is not a master of himself. He has not obtained freedom, he is still a slave to conditions. But I shall assume that you have mastered the exercise and are ready to take the next step, which is mental freedom. Now after taking your usual position, remove all tension by completely relaxing, then mentally let go of all adverse conditions, such as hatred, anger, worry, jealousy, envy, sorrow, trouble or disappointment of any kind. You may say that you cannot let go of these things, but you can. You can do so by mentally determining to do so, by voluntary intention and persistence. The reason that some cannot do this is because they allow themselves to be controlled by the emotions instead of by their intellect. But the will guided by the intellect will gain the victory. You will not succeed the first time you try, but practice makes perfect, in this as in everything else, and you must succeed in dismissing, eliminating and completely destroying these negative and destructive thoughts, because they are the seed which is constantly germinating into discordant conditions of every conceivable kind and description. Part 4 Questions. What is thought? Thought is spiritual energy. How is it carried? By the law of vibration. How is it given vitality? By the law of love. How does it take form? By the law of growth. What is the secret of its creative power? It is a spiritual activity. How may we develop the faith, courage, and enthusiasm which will result in accomplishment? By a recognition of our spiritual nature. What is the secret of power? Service. Why is this so? Because we get what we give. What is the silence? A physical stillness. Of what value is it? It is the first step to self-control, self-mastery. There is nothing truer than that the quality of thought which we entertain correlates certain externals in the outside world. This is the law from which there is no escape. And it is this law, this correlative of the thought with its object, that from time immemorial has led the people to believe in special providence. Wilmans.